Welcome to Unlocking Human Potential with me, Andy Hosgood, a show dedicated to exploring what it really takes psychologically, behaviourally and practically to help humans thrive through conversations with leaders, founders, coaches, behavioural experts and people shaping how humans perform and grow. Is this for you? But if you're a leader, a founder, a business owner or an ambitious professional who wants to do more than just perform, they want to grow, inspire and bring the best out in themselves and their people, then keep listening, because the mission is simple: to explore how individuals and teams unlock potential in themselves, in others and the organisations they shape. Every episode is a deep but relaxed conversation built around three core questions. How do you optimise yourself? How do you unlock potential in others? And the best advice for you, the listener. Now over to the episode. Really hope you find it helpful and insightful. Just before we introduce our next guest, please make sure you press the follow button to keep updated with the latest episodes. Additionally, special thanks to 246 Photography and Pixel Made Brands for making this podcast a reality. Now over to the episode. Nicki.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm
Thanks
good.
for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this. It's good. So today's guest, Nicki Allen, a physiotherapist and innovator, founder of Haptivate, a health tech company refining how we support children with movement challenges. Nicki's work sits in the intersection of clinical practice, technology, and human-centered care. After years of working in healthcare, she saw firsthand the gaps on how we support children with conditions like autism, particularly those struggling with mobility and development, and decided to do something about it. Through Haptivate, she's developed a wearable sensory-driven technology designed to improve movement, enhance rehabilitation, and give both clinicians and families better insight through real-time data. But behind the innovation is a much deeper story, one of curiosity, courage, and stepping outside traditional pathways to build something that could generally change lives. This is a conversation more about healthcare or technology. It's about seeing a problem, trusting your instincts, and having the courage to create something better.
What an intro.
Well, I'll be honest, a lot of that came from our first conversation. We obviously got, I'd seen you online. I know George, he'd been very open and honest how wonderful, I think his words were, he described you. And so, the opportunity to then sit down and talk to you and then listening to what you'd done, I left with a smile and an inspiration in my head, and I actually couldn't stop thinking of what you'd done. And I think, because it's, for me, and this is why we wanted to have this conversation, I want to record it, because I think it's brilliant that I hear an awful lot of people that go, oh, I had an idea once and I didn't do anything about it. Or people go, oh yeah, well, it would be dead easy, you just do that. Whereas actually listening to you, you've had those ideas, but actually you've seen it through. Which felt as well, when you first telling me, it wasn't your natural pathway to just jump in and take that risk. I don't know if that's a fair.
No, I think on the Clinical Entrepreneur Program, they say anyone can have an idea in the shower, which I actually have loads of brilliant ideas in the shower, but actually turning it into something is a different story. And I don't think you can quite conceive what it takes, but it's a really fun journey. And I think there's been a lot of luck on my journey and a lot of right time, right place to my story, really. And George is lovely. He's always been really supportive. So.
Yeah, he is lovely. Yeah, he is. Yeah. So like we always do with this pod, curiosity kind of is a thread that runs through a lot of it. So I'm curious what you're curious about right now.
So I'm really curious about where this path will take me. I think I am not on a traditional physio path. You kind of do your rotations, you do your specialty. I specialised twice and then couldn't decide between the two and ended up staying in both specialties, so paediatrics and adult neuro. And but from there, you kind of become less patient facing. You go up to band sevens and eights. And I just didn't really fancy that. So I'd worked in adult neuro for most of my career, really, probably about 15 years before I went into pediatrics. Um, and I had four kids at the time, so a term time
Right.
contract really was quite appealing. And I found myself working in a special school that had a lot of tiptoe walking children. And with tiptoe walking children, it can affect any child. And you would normally teach them stretches and give them splints and special shoes, or teach them through play to stretch their ankles. But the children in this school were non-verbal, so they couldn't understand what you were trying to teach them. And then they had a lot of sensory issues. So if you tried to put splints or do the stretches, they didn't know what you were doing and they didn't like the sensation, so
Mm.
they'd run off. So then my job became really watching them get worse and referring them for surgery because they actually lose range of movement around their ankles. Um, and one day I was basically moaning in the classroom like, this is absolutely rubbish. Why can't we adapt what we're doing to give something effective for these children? And one of the TAs said, wouldn't it be great if in the same way shoes lit up when the heels touched the floor, they
Yeah.
vibrated? And I thought, that's absolutely genius. So we started looking at the literature and we found wearable devices, which were watches that vibrated, had been used to alter that kind of sensory soothing rocking behavior in autistic kids. Um, so we started playing around with the idea of vibration and we held a focus group with the parents, the SEN teachers, the autists, the podiatrists, therapy assistants, and what we came up with was our device. So it's really simple. As the heel comes down, they get a vibration. And we did some early testing of that. And then I got onto the clinical entrepreneur program, you know, because all my friends were, oh, this is great, but how are you going to actually make this into a thing? And randomly in a hospital newsletter up came the clinical entrepreneur program, which kind of catapulted me into a completely different environment. I suddenly found myself in a room with the CEO of NHS England, Stephen Powers, saying that innovation is the only way to save the NHS. Now, I don't think anybody works in the NHS for 25 years you don't really stay there for the pay and conditions. You stay there because you believe in equal access to
Yeah.
healthcare. And I don't always see that as much these days. So to think that actually, if we can use innovation to stop the surgeries, to stop the wasted
Yeah.
splints, and to stop the pain and the frustration really that the children go through, then this would be great. So I went back to my trust all kind of fired up, we're going to save the NHS, it's going to be great. And when I got there, it, it didn't really go anywhere. I emailed the chief exec and didn't get a response. And then I was just a bit deflated, really.
Right.
Um, so eventually I did get a response from them basically saying that we don't have the infrastructure to support innovation. We want to support it, but we don't have the finance and we don't have the infrastructure at the minute. Um, so on one of the clinical entrepreneur pit stops, I found Lorna, who is the CEO of Liver Labs locally. They support local businesses. And I basically stalked her to the toilet and said, I need you in my life after hearing her pitch.
Nice.
Um, and from that point, I got on their incubator program, which gave me £25,000 worth of investment, which we used to kind of do patent the idea. We did a
Nice.
feasibility study to see could we get electronics small enough into an insole to create what we needed. We produced a benchtop prototype and we got kind of SEIS, which is a tax relief benefit
Right.
assured. And then they made me pitch and pitch and pitch until we were ready. And our first pitch that I did with them, we got VC funding. So
Brilliant.
from that point, we had a board. I grew a business team around me. And we've now kind of developed our MVP. We've got a product ready for testing. We've just had a grant to do a usability test, at which hopefully we're in talks with Alder Hey. In principle, they're going to support and sponsor
Nice.
the usability study. Um, and So I'm just really curious to see where it takes me. I think people say that you're going to die in the chasm once you've built your product.
Okay.
How do you get enough funds to kind of cross that chasm? Um, and that we've taken a huge risk or whatever. But I kind of think I'm learning loads of skills that
Yeah.
I didn't have before. And I am committed to finding a resolution to the problem. And if this solution's not right, well, then we'll try something else. And as long as we can keep the funds coming in,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, then we can iterate on what we found and hopefully get closer to finding the problem. So I think that's where my curiosity is
Yeah.
taking me, really, is
Lovely.
where we go and how we get there.
Lovely. If I could, just before we start really kind of delve into some of that, just for some listeners that are from a non-healthcare background, can you just
Yeah, sorry.
explain? No, it's good. To the tiptoe walking and what that means and how how that does affect child
Yes.
development.
So many children can learn to walk on their tiptoes. They can be just normal children. It can affect 2% of the normal population. Um, and that's fine. And lots of children grow out of it. What we worry about is the children who walk on their tiptoes and never, ever place their heels on the floor. This can lead to kind of physical and developmental problems. So
Yeah.
it can lead to musculoskeletal deformities, gait and balance issues. And if they never put their heels on the floor, they start to lose range of movement around their ankles. And
Okay.
then they have to have the surgery to reduce it. The children that I was looking at were mainly autistic children. And the reason they were tiptoe walking, autism is a spectrum, so it's
Mm,
quite complex. So there's not one answer. There's evidence to show that it's an inner ear problem. There's
right.
evidence to show that it's a hypersensitivity, so they don't actually like the foot on the floor, so the heel comes up.
Oh, okay.
There's also evidence to show that it's hyposensitive, where they actually feel that burn in the calf, and that's why they stay up on their toes. And it could be a wonderful picture, a mix of everything,
Yeah.
really.
Okay.
Um, but ultimately, it's a sensory processing problem. So our insole has vibration, so sensation. It has visual rewards and
Yeah.
auditory rewards. So we're trying to tackle that kind of sensory pathway really in any way we can.
No, and that's why I wanted to just because I think for a lot of people they might be unsure of actually how big the problem is, and 2%
Yeah.
of children, that's quite big. And then, like you said, on top of that, the challenge of where uh, we've got a guest already. I love it. That's why it keeps it real. So for those that just listening, Nikki's cat keeps
Nicky
joining
cat.
into the conversation,
I
which
did
is
try
good.
and lock him out, but he just
No, it's
cried too
cool. I
much on
love
the
it. I
floor.
love it. It's great. So, I think that's really important that we kind of, when we look at what you are trying to create and how you are trying to make a difference in the world, I think it is a real big and important thing to
Yeah.
lots of, and it's not just the children, is it? I think it's one of the things I loved about you is the fact that you're obviously getting the parents involved, through the focus groups and say, okay, what is going to help the parents obviously with these challenges? Because, I would never say I actually probably know not a lot around autism and those kind of conditions, but from what I am aware of, I know the challenge of the parents always trying to kind of get the support and help, and that's partly one of the things that you're doing is trying to help the parents by bringing them into these to say, well, okay, what's going to make your life easier as well as the child's as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's no point in us building something that doesn't work for the parents
Yeah,
or the clinicians,
yeah,
actually. If it makes either of those lives worse, it's not going to reach the child. And if the child doesn't enjoy it, then again, it's
yeah.
completely pointless. It's just another wasted product. So we absolutely have to build it. And we're working with Alder Hey, have got a patient open innovation zone, which is fantastic, where we can have clinician days. We just take our product and the clinician can have a look at it and say, oh, that won't work in our day to day. That's going to make or actually, this could really help. Or have you
Yeah.
thought about this? We also have a youth day where we give the product to children with kind of no instruction and we see what they do with it
Right.
and
Okay.
will they interact with it? Will they play with it? Because guaranteed what they will do with it will not be what we think they're going to do with it.
Yeah.
So I think getting that kind of the patient and the parent engagement is just absolutely vital to what we
Yeah.
do. Otherwise, there is zero point in us doing it. Creating something that I think is pretty, and I got my 9-year-old to try the insole, and I said, "What did you think?" He said, "Oh, it's great, Mum. Yeah." He said, "I just wish I could shoot people with it." I was
All
like,
right.
we can't do that. But it's
Yeah.
getting those kind of new ideas and new
Yeah.
games and things that we won't have thought of, that is really, really important. It is a huge problem. It affects 9 million kids globally,
Wow.
45% with autism. Um, so it is a huge problem. And the cost of the tendon lengthening surgery in the UK alone is over 26 million pounds for
Wow.
1 year. So it's a huge problem. And if we
Mm.
can do something to, just using a really simple solution, then I think it's worth us having a go.
Flipping heck, I mean, 100%. I think it's amazing. And, just when you just roll those numbers off, you can just see, the amount of people who are being affected by it. So actually coming up with that challenge and the fact that you're looking at it from that whole 360 view from the child, looking at it from the parent, looking at it from the clinician, and actually the long-term benefit to them and also any kind of early intervention surgery is never nice for anyone to go through either. So if we can avoid that at the same
Yeah.
time, then there's the
But it doesn't
benefits.
actually deal with the behavior behind the toe walking either.
Okay.
So it has to be repeated 10 years later,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
yeah. And when you think of, you're talking about the parents as well. The parents, often some of these children don't sleep. And the
Right.
parents are up all night trying to do the stretches with the kids. They have the
Right.
same issues that we do. The kids don't like the sensation. They don't know what you're doing. They'll run off. So it
Yeah.
becomes a battle that they don't need to have. Whereas if it's a game for the
Yeah.
kids really that they enjoy, then it just takes that bit of hassle. But also we have real-time feedback so the parent can see how effective it's been, how many times the heel touches the floor. So, and they have like day streaks as well within the app, so
Right.
you can
Okay.
see how compliant they're being. Um, so, again, they can see if it's working or if it's not for the
Nice.
child really,
Yeah.
really nicely. So, yeah.
The Duolingo of wearable sensors.
Well, that's it. Somebody said we should get like robot vouchers attached to
Right. Okay. Yeah.
it.
Yeah. But
It's a bit of a reward system going.
yeah, I'm sure lots of children will be buzzing off that. I know that game
Yeah.
as with a teenager in the house has definitely been. So just for, you know, this podcast has kind of three themes, so for new listeners to this, and obviously, Nikki, I've hopefully given you this, but, so we're going to talk around hopefully how you get the best out of yourself. And, what I'd love to do is explore your journey from the clinician into the entrepreneur that you are now
Yeah.
and CEO and leader. And then, and then, and then we talk about unlock others. I think one of the great things is when we have conversations, a lot of people become on their journey, obviously find what works for them. And I think when we get in certain positions, and I know you are building a team and there's people around you, and it's then how do we then help others get the best out of themselves? So as more of a mentor, coach, leader, whatever you choose to call yourself in that kind of position, what have you learned or what along the way that you then kind of help other people get the best out of themselves? Or if someone was in your shoes going through, what advice would you do? And then I always think if someone's gonna give an hour of the time to listen to us have a good conversation, I think the so what piece. Okay, so you've had a good conversation. Now, if you're listening to this, and we've from sport, from leadership, from people who are thinking of entering entrepreneurship, we've got entrepreneurs, we've got CEOs. The list is really good. And what's been really interesting with lots of the conversations we've had so far is that everyone can learn from everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're, and I think that is certainly. So then it's about then, okay, so what for people listening, how do we wrap this up and what advice could we do for people to then maybe take some action? That
Yeah.
sound okay?
Okay. Yeah. Fine. Yeah.
Awesome. So if we could start with you,
Hmm.
I'd be
Yeah.
really curious to just explore, you gave a really lovely summary of your kind of journey from a healthcare professional, neuro, obviously peds and adult.
Yeah.
And then, okay, now I need to change. I found this problem. I need to become an entrepreneur. So I'm
It
just,
didn't quite happen like that overnight. It was more like a 3-year journey.
yeah,
Um, I gave a talk the other week at Liverpool Uni, and one of the people said, "How have you moved it so fast?" And I said, "Fast? I've been doing this forever." For me, it's been slow, I think. So the original testing we probably did about 2, maybe 3 years ago. Liver Labs was October 24, the initial, and I think it's just kind of been like it's slowly built
yeah,
as time's gone on. I needed to be doing more and more on the business, and then when we got the grant, I needed to be the principal investigator on the grant. So we had enough money within the business, and it was just the time really. So if I was principal investigator on the business, I had to be doing it full time. That was
okay,
one of the kind of stipulations. And because it had been building, I was ready, I think, I was kind of juggling 2 jobs, um, which I've realised now it is a full-time job. And I'd started asking the trust I was working with, I was having to do days in London, conferences here and there. I was juggling my caseload, my patients, and I didn't feel like it was fair, really. So I think it just happened naturally, really, that I left the NHS and started on this full time. Um, yeah.
so if we could just delve into a little bit of that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of
One of the
course.
things that certainly my curiosities is there's lots of people working within healthcare or other industries that are doing a job that they're employed to do, doing it really, really well. Can obviously see how things could be doing better, which kind of I get the impression that's what you saw and how you described it. But then don't do anything with it for, and we've had lots of people talking on this podcast around limited beliefs, lack of self-esteem, almost procrastination, all of those things that, I think people sit on and go, hmm. So what do you think was different about you? What is different about
I
you that
mean, I think if you ask any of my friends, I've always been prone to a madcap idea.
okay.
Like along being a physio, I've also been a childminder, I've been a yoga teacher.
Okay.
I've always had a new thing. And
Okay.
like if I say I'm doing this, people just kind of roll their eyes, go, "Oh God, what's she doing now?" This one's kind of stuck.
Okay. That's good.
This one's
Yeah.
been going. So whether they were all like preparations for this, I
Yeah.
don't know. But interestingly, when on one of the pit stops on the entrepreneur program, they had like a Belbin test, which is like a personality test.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people on those courses were consultants and doctors, and I felt a little bit like, oh, how did I get
Okay.
here? Um, and they made you do a personality test, and my personality test came out that I'm an innovator, and
Right.
as was every single person in the room, and
Okay.
that for me was like, I found my tribe. And they talked a lot
Nice.
about, are you this person that always has these ideas? And people go, oh God, Nikki, come on, there's no money. Where are we going to get that? How are we making that happen?
Yeah.
Um, so I think I've always had that in me, and
Right.
I'd been in my 2 specialties, one for 10 years, one for near enough 25 years. Um, I wanted to learn, I wanted to grow. And it's not so much, obviously we want to make a difference for the kids, but also for me, it's about the learning and the growing and
Okay.
going in a different direction, um, but using the skills kind of that we've learned along the way. So I didn't feel like I'm losing anything or moving away from something stable. I felt more like I'm growing, and that was more important to me.
It's a really interesting mindset, isn't it? Because I think I like the fact that you've got all these other skills as well that you can always. um, is that coming soon? The yoga teacher as well, but and it's interesting because when we delve down into this, like you've said, every single step of that is part of your journey, maybe, isn't it? And I think
Yeah,
there's lots of people who are listening who, especially in healthcare, I think that we part of my as a healthcare professional for almost 25 years as well. It's one of those where I think we have lots of conversations with people that aren't always happy in the role they do and are always trying little things. And I think what I just picked up from that conversation was it was just what was going to land the best for you. And this one, like, or you used, this one just seemed to stick. And, and
Yeah, that's it.
I guess the curiosity for me and the word that comes to mind is the word motivation. How have you kept motivated? Because when you were talking about that you're even getting to the point you are now, you were working the two jobs and trying to balance
Mm.
it all and having to travel enough. And you said you had four kids before. So that's quite most people would go, oh, this is too much, I'm bailing. But there you just seem to be motivated. You're still smiling, which is lovely, and you still got that
Um,
energy.
I've always got to have a little hobby, like if it otherwise I'd be moving house or I'd be,
Okay.
I'm
Right.
that sort of person. Um, I like to be, I like to do stuff. And I've got an incredibly supportive family.
Yeah.
My husband is working on my business as well as doing his own,
Nice.
and he will run the house while I'm not here,
Yeah.
so I don't think I could do that without their support really. So I'm just lucky, I think, that yeah, we've got the support around us to be able to do it really and indulge my craziness.
It doesn't, I mean, I would, I'm not challenging the word craziness, although I think for me, it's, you know, what underpins a lot of it seems to be a lot of passion and the passion for making a difference and a passion for learning, a passion for growth. That's what's coming across for me in a really strong way. And I guess you talk about that this growth mindset. I mean, I've used my word. You said you're always like wanting to improve and get better and better and better. I've
Yeah.
terminology growth mindset in a way to do stuff. Always want to learn. I guess if you could, what's changed? Along that journey, along your journey about yourself that you've developed. I mean, you said it took you to a room where you had to do a
Yeah.
personality test, and then you went, "Oh, I'm an innovator. I'm an innovator," and you actually used, "I found my tribe."
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
what's happened along, or is that just something that you think actually I've always been that? It was just really nice that actually someone's labelled it for me, and I feel like
Yes,
actually, okay,
yeah. Yeah, I wasn't just the oh God, what's she doing now? But everybody else was the same. That
yeah,
was really nice for me. I think I did get a bit of imposter syndrome, when you join the entrepreneur program, everybody there is incredible. Like literally, I think on my first, you sit next to people and you turn and you look at one person. He had invented a hologram where you can. I probably shouldn't talk about it actually. He'd invented something incredible for
okay,
brain surgery. And somebody the other side also incredible. And I was like, oh, got a little in soul, just felt. But the entrepreneur program gave me like a career coach who
right,
asked me questions that were really kind of made you squirm inside. Well, why isn't yours as valid as theirs? You know,
yeah,
and really dug into me, made me feel quite uneasy. But actually, I mean, she was lovely. She was lovely. But something about what she did and the questions she asked made me not care about me in the situation and made me think more about actually what's important is getting this problem solved and getting the message across. And I'm in a good place to get that message across. Like I'm not a natural speaker. I don't
okay,
really, enjoy speaking in front of big crowds, but I'm the person to do it because my journey actually is quite powerful in helping
mm,
get that message across. Um, so I've kind of just, kind of get over yourself, just get out there, get the message done. And every time I do, something incredible happens.
okay,
Some connection comes up, or we get investment when we weren't expecting it, or a conversation happens. Even we've tried to work with some trusts, NHS trusts, and they initially say no, but because of the network you build, somebody has
mm,
a conversation without you knowing
right,
until after the fact, and all of a sudden they want to work with you and they want to, so I think pushing yourself through those it's actually been massively worth it for me. And just get over yourself and get it done. Really.
That's quote of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tagline of the pod. Get over yourself and get it done. I like
Yeah.
it. Awesome. Clickbait. Perfect.
But I think, yeah, I think having those conversations that and I've got a really wonderful Ned as well, John Carrington, who he'll just say, take the emotion out of it, Nikki.
So that's a non-executive director for those
Yes,
people
non-exec
unfamiliar. Okay.
director, sorry. He'll just say, take the emotion out of it. If I've got an issue that I need to raise, I think as physios, we're used to dealing with other people's problems, but
Yeah.
sometimes you have to bring problems to the table and get that sorted out. And he just said, this is business, just take the emotion out and that helps massively, I think, just to do that really. I
So
think as a
just
human, you want to be liked and you want to be helpful and,
yeah.
kind. And I want to do that. And that's how I want to move forward. But I don't know how to navigate some of the situations without offending people, and I think, again, having those advisors around you to support and guide you with that is really useful.
So if we could, for those people unfamiliar with the NHS's clinical entrepreneur program, if you
Yeah.
could a little bit just explain what that is and also what that environment is like. Because obviously you were asked those what sound the career coach sound like they asked some challenging questions.
Yeah.
Um, but you've got to be in the right environment, haven't you, for you to feel comfortable to say to actually not worry about what you're going to say. So what is it about? Well, firstly, if you could just share a little bit about what the program is, and then what is it about that environment that you felt allowed you to get over yourself, if you put it in the nicest possible way?
It's an incredibly inspiring environment. So it's run by Tony Young, who is the clinical entrepreneur lead and chief of clinical innovation for NHS England. And it's so you when you apply, you get on, and then it's like an evening and a whole day once a month for 12 months,
Okay.
basically teaching you the business skills that you need. So it was originally designed for NHS clinicians to support grassroots innovation. And then it's grown. They've now got a patient entrepreneur group as well.
Oh, nice.
Um, and I think there's a separate Parkinson's entrepreneur program as well. So it's growing year on year. I saw him on Friday and he said they've just taken on 250 new clinical entrepreneurs
Wow.
for this cohort. So I think they're in cohort 9 or 10, maybe. I was
Okay.
cohort 7. But I still, as an alumni, have access. I can go to any of those pit stops. They have a whole wealth of resources. One of the other Tamsin, Dr. Tamsin Brown's a pediatrician on it, and she's been incredibly supportive. She gave me the heads up about an NIHR pediatric sprint day in Cambridge, which I went down and won. And
Right.
from there, I'm going back this year to talk as kind of like a mentor on that. So,
Nice.
it's all about networking, it's about supporting you, it's about giving you the right tools as a clinician, really, to take your product and to embed it within the NHS with the view of trying to generate funds for the
Mm.
NHS and make processes cleaner, better, more efficient. Um, Given that we don't have much funds and staffing is reducing, these innovations can be vital to supporting the NHS and promoting that equal access to care, really.
No, I love that. I love that.
So I think for me as well, why was it comfortable? It was just so inspiring.
Right. Okay.
Um, that other clinicians, the things they were doing, the way they talked about. I think Tony's got a really lovely way of talking. He'll hear an innovation and he'll go, "Wow,
Mm.
just wow." And it really makes you want to be like, I want to,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I want to have a wow. Um,
Yeah.
it just is really, really inspiring. The people you meet were really lovely. I think the coach was a one-to-one on Teams, so I was at home. It was private.
Yeah.
It wasn't in a group setting. But they have lots of mentors as well, and you can pick your mentors on there. So I actually picked a mentor that worked for a med tech company, And
Right.
she helped us design our first prototype, literally with like £20 worth of Amazon parts.
Right.
So that was enough for us to get a bit of proof of concept that we could then go and get the funding with. So and I would never have found Liver Labs if it wasn't for the Clinical Entrepreneur Program. So just incredible space really for clinicians to go to, and as a first part on your journey.
That definitely sounds it. And what do you feel like it's done for you in, I guess, part of your growth mindset? How has it changed you on your, because to go from an idea in school
Yeah,
to then pitching for, venture capitalist money.
yeah.
It's quite a leap and a jump, isn't it? And it's something probably there's the word unfamiliar seems to.
Yeah, terrifying. I think the bit in the middle for me was the Liver Lab support. So the
Okay.
incubator program, they only took on 8 companies, and each company was given someone to sit next to them. So I could say, what does that mean? I don't know
Right.
what that is. What's a TAM? What's a SOM? What's a SAM? You know, and they really helped pull together your business plan, pull together your pitch deck, and then they made you pitch, and they made you pitch, and they made you pitch, and
Okay.
they gave you loads of feedback that got you really ready. And they've been incredibly supportive as well. Even like manufacturers that I'm starting to talk to, oh, Live Labs have spoken about you. They've massively facilitated things outside of the incubator program. And Rachel Lawless, who she sits on my board, she's one of the Live Lab members. She also writes grants, and she, you know, basically was the reason that we got our grant.
Okay.
So they just surround you with incredible people. It's a Liverpool City region funded thing. So anyone in the Liverpool City region can benefit from the support. They can help you with your health economics piece. And that leap, I think I went to them really with the idea and the concept and the fire, and they gave me the business. Um, they gave me everything that we have today, really. Gave us that first rung on the ladder.
If I could share something, you've used the word luck a couple of times during this
Yeah.
conversation, and I think, have you been lucky, but have you got put yourself in an environment where for lots of people listening, the thought of then having to one, turn up to that meeting would be terrifying enough to say, I'm not going. The second thing to sit answering those questions would go, I'm not quite sure I'm made for this. Then to go, oh, by the way, we're going to teach you to pitch and you're going to do it loads and loads and loads and loads and loads, but we're going to give you feedback. Again, it seems to be that, you know, this luck seems to come from also your drive, your passion to make sure this happens, but also your willingness to turn around and go, okay, cool, I can be better than that. That's right. Because it's all right being given feedback, but actually taking it on board, going, okay, cool, I can use that and I can adapt that to change, and being the word brave. I don't know where you sit with that word, but I actually generally I mean that when I say it, because I think for a lot of people they would be fearful or would be frightened to make that. And the word brave for you, it just seems like, oh yeah, it's just what I do, innit? But yeah.
I absolutely was shaking, but I don't think that's brave. I think it's just more that I'm like not a natural speaker, and it's a skill I need to learn, and it's part of that learning.
Yeah,
It's part of to get to the solution. This is what you've got to do. So, you're really lucky. It was kind feedback that, they were critical best friends. It felt like a safe space. They weren't, mean. They were
yeah,
just, they were giving really constructive feedback that you learn and you grow from, and so it is about the growing, like and getting closer to the solution, really, I think,
yeah.
rather than I think one day I don't wear my watch when I give talks because I think it's going to call an ambulance. My heart rate's too high. But I think one day my body will desensitize to that. I'll get better, you know.
Also, maybe that's makes you need that to make you perform well on stage, because obviously they're all going well from the sounds of it.
I've been heckled off stage a few times because I've overrun. And that was interesting, actually. The last one, like I've overrun on time. And afterwards I was saying, oh, I can't believe I've overrun. And somebody said to him, Nicky, did you notice the fella after you? He overran by 5 minutes. And when he realized he'd overrun, he did not blink. He carried on, he sailed through. Whereas I was like, I'm so sorry, rushed off.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bit of a mindset thing there, really, is to,
But again, is that you're being considerate of others, though, aren't you? I think in that moment, you're aware that there's somebody else about after you, so that you are considerate of others. And I think I always get the impression with, and this is a stereotype of people who are passionate about what they do, when they get the opportunity to talk about it, they enjoy talking about it. Time does disappear, doesn't it? I've got to be, when I present, I've almost got to say, right, I know this is a half an hour presentation, for example. But at home, I've got to go, right, I know this, I've got to be able to finish this presentation in 20 minutes because the minute I'll get on stage, my giddiness level goes up.
yeah,
And actually, what I'd rehearsed in my head will never come out. So
exactly that.
it is just knowing that I've got 20 minutes of content, right? This is going to be, if this goes well, it might be under half an hour because I know what I'm like. And that just comes from, but again, it comes from a place of, I like sharing information. I like being helpful. It comes from a place of good. I'm not trying to be a
Yeah.
divvy to the person next to behind me, who's on afterwards.
No.
It's
Just
always
very different styles, I suppose. Or, like I don't think he was trying to hog anything. I think he's a brilliant pitcher. He's really good to listen to, really impressive. And he just didn't let it flap him. He
yeah.
just stayed professional. Whereas I was just, I just went to pieces.
But it also shows that we are all different as humans, isn't it? And it's not the right way. And even if you feel, you look at somebody like that, it could be a swan, couldn't it? It could
Yeah.
look absolutely nailed, but inside of his head, and that's the bit we never really know.
Yeah, and I think I find myself pitching a lot on stages where kind of a lot of the other pitchers are PhD students.
Okay.
What they're doing is just incredible. But we seem to get quite a lot of good feedback. I don't know because we're simpler,
Okay.
because we tell a more human story, maybe a more
Yeah.
relatable story. Um, and people always come up, and that's where we get it's really fascinating to me because some of the other pictures are incredible. They're talking about saving cancer and, just amazing. But we always seem to get really just really lovely feedback. And I think it's just because we're just a simple and easy to understand.
But that is a skill. And it's an undervalued skill, isn't it? Of making something that's quite complicated really simple so anyone can understand it, I think is a skill. And the more and more I look into, I'm a geek, so the more and more I look into human communication, storytelling resonates a lot with people better, doesn't it? And I think you have got an amazing story to tell and an amazing story of what you're trying to do. And I think it's really clear. So I think I think there's some skill behind a lot of that. What I'd like to do, if you feel comfortable, is just kind of, because one of the things that you touched on was how some of these mentors and some of these coaches that have kind of influenced you,
Mhm.
and now you even said that you're going back to that conference and you're now doing mentoring. I'm just
Yeah.
curious, what was the things that maybe you've picked up from them that people listening now could probably benefit from understanding a bit more?
I think that everybody you are dealing with are human.
Yeah.
And things aren't, I think going into this, I felt like things were black and white. Yes, you can do this. No, you can't do that. Whereas now it's more sometimes a no. You might hear a no, but it might not be a no forever. It might be a
Yeah.
no, try this, or
Okay.
maybe try a different way, or, knock on a different door, or that door will open in the future. You
Yeah.
know, you can try and I think, yeah, I think just keeping in mind your passion, your vision,
Yeah.
and finding a way to make it work. There is a way. Um, and I think I really do believe that. I do believe that there is a way to make it work. And if I make mistakes along the way, well, then we learn from them. If
Yeah.
it's a no, if we don't get the grant, well, then we get feedback and we grow from it. And I think that's the way. I view it. And I think I've not led with anything like I'm an expert in this. I've actually led with, I have no clue what I'm doing. Please, can you help me? And
Okay.
everybody comes and helps.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's been really, really lovely on my journey is that we've got surrounded by incredible people just trying to help with the same problem or with the same real motives, and just trying to be nice people as well. So, I think that's helped too. It's actually
Well,
helped that I don't know what I'm doing.
well, I'm curious if that is how much of that is actually true, but I think the thing for me is
Most of it.
what I pick from that is that, but you are being real, aren't you? And I think the transparency and the openness, I think a lot of people can pick up on, can't they? And I think sometimes, and that obviously comes around and about in how you are and your comfortableness with being open. So actually, I'm not very good at this. We were talking prior to this call, and I think, when we get to senior leadership positions, and we've had a lot of CEOs, and I know your title of CEO, even though we asked about, you were like going, oh, I don't know if I'm a leader yet. Okay. But one of the things that the candidate's saying is actually, for a lot of the journey up to becoming that, as they got to leadership, they were like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I don't feel comfortable saying that because how will I be judged?
Yeah.
And I had a CEO on the pod, and he basically said, oh, I got to the top and I was running this massive international company, and I was looking around going, I don't know what's going on here. But what I then and you're going, all right. Anyway, so but the good thing was I knew somebody around me that did, and I
Yes.
felt comfortable asking for help and saying, look, I haven't got a clue what's going on here. You couldn't do us
Yeah.
a favor and explain this to me. And I think
Exactly that.
I genuinely believe there's a superpower in that.
Yeah,
I genuinely believe.
absolutely. Because you then get the information that you need to move it forwards and to move it, there's no point me saying, oh yeah, no, this one I don't. I think it'll come through for starters, but also it just won't get the job done properly. So,
Yeah.
I need to properly understand it and I need to surround myself with people that like you say, I can feel comfortable to ask. Like I said, my Ned, if I have a problem, I send him an emoji of a ghost, like Ghostbusters, so he knows I need support quick.
Okay.
And it's having those people around you to support you, the experienced ones that you can really trust, and you know that they've been there, they've walked the same path. And now, they're there to support you and help you on your journey so you don't make mistakes that they have. And I think you only get the actual really valid advice when you can articulate the problem really well to them. And if you're hiding bits of the problem, then you're not going to get the full solution. So,
Oh my gosh, that makes me smile so much because I think that is partly, especially in my world, people don't do that, do they? I think they do because for whatever reasons, if I say this out loud, people are going to judge me. And I think that judgment is such a big thing. I should know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to create this product and I've got all this money and someone's giving me this money to do this. Where actually the superpower you're leaning into is going, I really know where we want to get to and we're going to get there. But along the way, I don't know this and this and this, but I'm going to find a way. I'm going to be open and honest and transparent. I need your answer.
yeah.
And also, you're going to have clarity over which emoji means what. So when you, so if you send him a thumbs up one, all good, or an okay symbol, it's all good. But a ghost one, he jumps on the phone straight away. Goes right,
Yeah,
what do we need to
exactly
do?
that.
But I think it is important, isn't it, that you have people around you that you feel that you can do that with. And I think that's something which I would certainly encourage anybody that is looking to do, just to find somebody, but also somebody that's not going to just smile and go, oh, you're wonderful and brilliant. It sounds like along the time
Absolutely.
people have pushed back. They can be
Yeah.
compassionate with feedback.
Yes. Absolutely, you need those people that say, even I was giving a talk the other week, and Lorna, the CEO of Live Labs, I'd said, "Oh, I've got this new idea for a product, and we could do this and that," and she just went, "Nikki, just focus.
Okay.
These 12 months, you need to do this, this, and this." And oh, okay, I need that reining in, and that focus because otherwise I would be off, and then you just spread yourself too thin, really. It's good to have the foresight of what's coming next and have
Yeah.
those ideas, but you need the experience of other people to help kind of filter when's the right time and and what stages you go through. I think it is vitally important not to have yes people, but to have people that will say, no, that's not right.
Oh my gosh, music to my ears. But again, that is, one of the things that a lot of business owners, especially the world that I work in now, that are founder-based business owners, because they don't want to be caught out, will even recruit and hire people that they know are very similar to them and will probably agree with them because they're afraid of challenge or, again, judgment from others. And they say, well, I'm the boss, I should know what I'm doing. So I think the fact that you're actually actively encouraging that, saying that and living it, that obviously fills in with all the luck that you.
But I think it's that culture as well. Like if I'm not afraid to ask questions, then no, they won't be either, and I think
Yeah.
that it leads into that culture where we all can kind of support and learn each other, learn from each other as we go.
Uh, yeah, I mean that opens up that whole thing of saying, you know, leadership and role modeling. And if you're leading from the front and saying, look, I don't know everything and it's okay, then actually people can turn around and, well, I don't know this. I think that's really nice. But then also you learn together, don't you? And you
Yeah.
solve problems together, and that can even deepen the bond within a team and a culture because you're all kind of on that journey together.
Yeah, you've got the kind of mutual respect, I suppose, and trust then of each other, haven't you? Which I think is
Mm,
really important.
no, definitely, 100%. So is there anything, so from your experience so far, what would you, from a leadership perspective, if you've got people who are, in leadership positions or are mentoring, coaching, and supporting others, what would be the key things that you would, what will that have helped you that you, in your position now, that you would actively do to support other people or other people should seek to get?
I think it's really cliche, but I think finding your tribe is
Okay.
huge. I don't necessarily go to all kind of the networking events and that kind of thing, but my tribe have just been so vital to my journey,
Mm.
really. The people that we've got around you is just incredible, and I don't think we'd be where we are without them. Um, so I think that would be the number one. I think encouraging the grassroots innovation. I didn't know it was an option in my
Right.
career.
Okay.
It wasn't really a path that you choose, and I would love to see that being a path that you choose. I think grassroots innovation is so vital, so
Mm.
important to the whole ecosystem, not just the NHS, but the
Yeah.
whole business world, everything, because we do know we can see the gaps, we have the ideas, and it's how we transform them. If we can, the more people that tread that path, the the clearer those pathways will become. And I think that can only be of benefit for everybody, really. So I think having a go, looking out for the clinical entrepreneur programs, approaching your quality leads, you or clinical innovators if you've got them in the trust, and seeing how you can make those ideas into reality. Um, and looking at the research, checking that what your idea, backing up your idea, really getting all your kind of ducks in a row. I think,
Yeah.
somebody,
Yeah.
I've spoken to people who were going even just to pitch to Live Labs in the first place, and they didn't really know that they had to think about how big is the problem, how, is there any literature to support it, and put all those bits in place, kind of all those early building blocks to make sure that you will be heard, your story will be heard when you take it to the people that can help you.
But I think, my interpretation of that is that you obviously, it's all right having a great idea, but actually being able to do the background check and making sure that idea is solid before presenting it.
Yeah.
Because one of the things, I mean, you only have to watch Dragon's Den, don't you? And if you don't know your numbers, you know,
They rip off the
but you, pardon.
they rip off the entrepreneurs. I always watch that program and think, they. But I think, yeah.
But
Anyway,
it's, yeah, I always look at it and go, they're going to ask you, what's
yeah,
your
your
numbers?
figures. Yeah, yeah,
So if you go on and go, oh, I don't know, you're thinking, what? Have you not watched this program before?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
even my daughter, when we watch it, goes, I wonder if they're going to know the numbers. It's such a thing. So, but
Yeah,
it is being
yeah,
prepared, isn't it? And I think sometimes it's great having an idea, but actually putting the depth and the detail in sometimes can really help you. And
okay.
yeah, and help you get lucky. I'm gonna, well, no, we're gonna,
Checking that nobody's done it before, going to a space net and searching the patterns and making sure that that idea has not happened before, all those things are kind of vital before you start anything. Because again, there's no point inventing something that somebody's already done.
or if yeah, I guess so. That's or learning from that. If it's this is something that hasn't
Yeah,
worked that you can improve
yeah,
upon.
yeah,
There's like
yeah,
you said, it's there's always room to learn, isn't there, and develop.
absolutely.
So just before we move into our advice section, I'm conscious of our time because and I've got about 8,000 million questions, but I'm going to pause them for you. Don't worry. I guess just for is there anything that around kind of yourself or developing others you'd like to share, or about your journey,
Um,
or anything you want to tell the listeners? Because
I
we're going to
think
go and go on.
taking time for yourself as well is really important. There's no point building something if, you're not spending time with your family or you're letting your health slide or something like that. I think you've got to keep those two really important as well. And for me, probably meditation really helps, or even just something simple like going for a walk with nobody else. So I don't even think of it, but I suddenly start to come up with brilliant ideas, which I'm not forcing because I'm not kind of sat at the desk and diverted with loads of other different tasks to do. It just suddenly starts to flow a bit more natural. So I think having that time to um, just reflect a little bit, but not in a formal way, just naturally, I think is really important. And then taking time to read as well from other people's journeys and finding that, I don't do it as often as I should, but if I'm on the train going somewhere, I get out like a female found a book or something like that.
Okay.
Um, and that really touches me
Yeah.
in a way that I can't really describe it. It just because again, I think sometimes you can just be sat at the computer for days, and
Mm.
not really you have meetings and things, but that human contact, but having the stories from other people on the same journey is really valuable as well.
I really like that. I really like that. And I think, one of the things we do always talk around is these practical things that people can try. And I think so you use going out on a walk, do you have headphones in or you just one with
No,
nature?
yeah,
Yeah.
just have the dogs. But yeah, I
Because
don't I don't like to. I think it's just having no distraction, no noise. It just helps your mind just sift through stuff.
there's a lot in that as well, isn't there? There's a lot of people talk around that and just being that being present in nature it can be really quite empowering and again
Yeah.
very reflective. And you also talk around like meditation, just taking time just to try not to think of anything.
Yeah, well, that's it. I think, I think again, John says if you're not running at full capacity,
Yeah.
then it'll show in the quality of your work and everything that you're producing, and you'll be more productive if you are in that better, flow, really.
And I think it's so important. I think it's one thing that many business owners and entrepreneurs and leaders forget to do is prioritize themselves. Because,
Hmm.
if you want to present the best version of yourself into a meeting or into your work, then actually you've got to think, what is the best version of myself? And
Yeah,
if you're burnt out, worn out, overwhelmed, you're not often bringing the best version of yourself, are you? If you've got no capacity, then sometimes, and that couldn't, and I'm not saying you would, but I know from my experience that can come across in sometimes the way you react or the way you behave or the way you respond, which then you go, oh gosh, I could have done that better.
yeah, absolutely,
No.
absolutely. I had like a 1 minute pitch with fabulous chap Oliver Montague who'd invented like a contraption you can put on any bike to turn it into an e-bike. And he
Okay.
gave us a talk last Monday in London about pitching. He made us pitch for a minute at the start and then he kind of rewrote everything for us or, helped us rewrite it and then he pitched at the end. And at the end, I was rushing for my train. I hadn't slept the night before. I couldn't remember just simple. He was filming it in one sentence at a time. And I was just laughed halfway through it because I was just getting the lines wrong. And, like, and I think it's just so important just to kind of breathe and just go, because that was a fabulous opportunity that I've stuffed up really because I've laughed during it, which is really inappropriate. And so I just think, if I take the time to do it properly, then that, you know, the quality that you produce, because the actual pitch he helped us produce in the end was fabulous.
Right, okay.
So yeah.
Awesome. I like that. What's one principle you wish every leader, and you can put stroke mentor, stroke coach, stroke understood?
Grassroots innovation is just really important to the whole
Okay.
ecosystem and to support it and to, you know, um, I think it is coming. I think that, there is people are aware and they are trying to change and channel and get those pathways and policies in. But I think um, that it's possible and that it actually could help support and sustain the NHS. And that's why it's really worthwhile supporting it, really.
Nice. If there's people listening, and there's been lots of insights in this conversation, and I look forward to listening and reading it back. What insights would you take that we've kind of discussed today, and what actions could people be actively doing differently? What were the simple take homes that that they could do today?
Um, I think don't be afraid of your ideas. They are valid. Check them out. If it's a path that you're interested in, follow it. And I do believe it's meant to be the doors will open and, you just have to do the preparation bits
Yeah.
first. And it's a really fun journey. Don't be afraid of it. It's really fun. It's really, really rewarding. And at the end of the day, you'll have a great adventure. And you might get closer to doing something that could be really meaningful and really impactful.
And it sounds also like you've learned an awful lot about lots of different things along the way as well.
Yeah, I have learnt lots of different things, medical regs, IP, just whole new worlds that didn't even know
Yeah.
existed. And it feels like every time you peel back something, there's a whole other minefield to learn or to go through. But again, it's really fun.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole other thing to get your head around and a different problem to tackle. But it's not boring. You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah. I get that impression you seem to just attack the world with a smile. And I think it's lovely. I think I think that for me is very inspirational. Just how most people find things challenging. It's fun to learn new stuff and just explore into it. And I love it. I think it's great. And I think and I can tell when you're talking about your journey, the smile's massive in it. You're buzzing off it. And I think it's lovely. And I think that really come across in this conversation. So for people who've enjoyed the conversation, where can people follow you and find out what you're up to? And
LinkedIn is the best place to follow me, Nicki Allen on LinkedIn, or you can look at the website. We've got www.haptivate.com. The new landing page is due in the next couple of days.
okay,
We're just finalising it. And then you can sign up for the pilot if people are interested, or sign up just to follow us. And hopefully we'll get a newsletter started up soon for the people that have signed up already.
awesome. Well, we'll put all of those details in the show notes as well, so people can just click on that. Is there anything you're working on next that people are?
We've got the usability study starting. We by the end of the year, really, we hope to have the data behind us and have the medical regulatory certification to say, and hopefully looking towards commercialisation in the UK towards the end of this year.
Oh,
So
awesome,
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah, lots to keep us busy.
Yeah, sounds like it. All with a smile though.
Yes, of course. Well, it's fun.
So we always like, if there's one final challenge you could just set our audience, what would it be?
Innovate. Become
Brilliant.
innovators. Think of solutions to the problems that you see. Um, and it doesn't have to be big, it can be small, it can be, and I think as well, be open to innovation. There are lots of amazing things out there already. And sometimes clinicians can be a little bit wary, rightly so. But if something has had the studies and the medical regulations behind them, had an awful lot of checks to make sure that they are safe. And I think if we're open to them, then they can make a real difference to our lives as clinicians and ultimately to the patients' lives and the experiences that they have.
Definitely. Nicki, thank you very much. It's been a lovely conversation. I really, really appreciate it. To our
Thank you for
fault.
having me.
Oh, it's been, yeah. I look to get what we need to do as a part two when we've had it, and just to see when we're in that, and so we can have a follow-up conversation for definite.
Definitely.
For all our listeners and followers, what would be awesome, check Nicki out, make sure you follow her. I think, as we all know, she's doing some amazing things, and it'd be great. And if you are a business that would like to support Nicki and throw some money into the business, then I'm sure she'd be welcome a conversation, some
Absolutely.
funding. We all know she can pitch really well now, so that's great. Please feel free to follow, subscribe on all our things to get all our latest updates. That would be awesome. Nicki, again, thank you ever so much for joining us. It's
Thank you
been
for having me.
a lovely conversation. And to our listeners, we'll see you on the next one.